Oh, yes.
Oh, I have mine. Yep.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first ladies' night here on Oracle Investments. Thank you so much for joining us. We have Alexandra, I don't take crap from credit rating agencies, Mertz, and we've got Jennifer, #Winter of Love Strahan on here. Sadly, we will not have Eva. Eva is not feeling well. Eva, if you are watching, we hope you feel better tonight. So tonight we are kind of leaving this open. We are just going to have some conversations about Elon, Tesla, Twitter, what is going on? We've got a wonderful full moon. We've got a blood moon. We've got a beaver moon. We've got elections. So much going on today. How are you ladies doing?
And we have got your birthday. Happy birthday, Tim.
Oh, yeah, happy birthday.
And yes, I am your host, Oracle Tim, the luckiest man on the planet tonight. So let's get started.
Jennifer.
So we'll get started right now, and we'll start with Alexandra and just share with everyone here what moment was it that you realized that Tesla was something special and you decided to invest?
Oh, that was easy. The moment I put my butt in it, which is actually my recommendation to anybody who needs to be convinced whether Tesla is worth it or not. Drive one, even if it's only for a test drive, and I think after that you'll understand. You immediately understand this is not a car, right? This is something more. It's the same transition that happened in the phone industry. Suddenly you had something that was just making sense, easy to use, giving you so much more than a normal car, being an electric car, and then you just start digging into it. So me, it was in March 2020.
Very nice. Yeah, and I remember you telling us the story about how you happened to time it just right at the bottom of the COVID crash. Well done.
I did. So because we got back from that test drive, I remember it was mind-boggling. And we were used to electric cars. We had electric cars since 2014, and it was just another world. And came back home and said to my husband, so it was obviously aftermarket that day. I said, tomorrow morning we're selling everything and we're going into Tesla, and never looked back.
Nice, very nice.
And you, Jennifer?
Oh, I've talked about it a couple times, but it's hard to. Okay, so it's a long story, but basically I'm in it for the bot. And I figured out a while ago that full self-drive was really about, they were going to make a robot that was solving for perception in AI, and I wanted a part of it. So then I sold a couple of properties. So I was primarily a real estate investor. I was afraid of the stock market because of the .com bubble. My parents had accounts for my sister and I, and we had a whole bunch of money in them. And then we had the big .com bubble around when my father had passed. And so it was just a big shock to me to watch an account go from, I think it lost something like 80% of its value. And I was like, oh, that can happen in the stock market. So I had no stocks. And then I've always been watching Tesla, and when I figured out, oh, that's what they're doing, I was like, we got to do this. So so that's what I ended up doing, probably around the same time, because I bought the big dip after the split. So I got in pretty heavy, like at that 368 mark that happened. So that was really nice. Because right now there's some pain right now. And I think a lot of the, so we see on Twitter, there's kind of two camps now. There is the positive camp and there's the negative Nelly camp. I think the negative Nellies, I think it's a lot of stress. I think that's what's happening is people maybe have overextended themselves. They're getting margin called. It's not what they expect. They didn't expect this macro environment. And so they're angry and they don't know where to put their anger, but like nothing has changed with actually, I take that back. A lot has changed with the company. They're executing amazingly. There's new products. They announced the bot. There's a lot of amazing things. I have a theory that I wanted to share with you guys whenever we're ready about the Twitter acquisition. I have some amazing breakthroughs from obsessively watching Lex and Andre Karpathy several times and taking notes. But I think that's kind of what's going on in our little Twitterverse, is I think people are really upset because they're getting margin called. I think that's also why this price is coming down a little bit.
Yeah, and actually they increased some margin requirements today. It's, at least Schwab did. So people got margin called quicker than they anticipated between the drop in the stock price and the higher requirements from Schwab. So that happened. And you, Tim, when did you get aware of Tesla?
So for me, so I started getting into stocks more heavily probably like 3 years ago. And for me, I didn't have a lot of money. So Tesla to me was expensive because I'm like, I literally had to put my entire portfolio in one share of Tesla. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. I didn't know enough about it. And then it was after the first split, right after they had been included into the S&P, my friend reached out to me and he's like, oh, dude, you got to invest in Tesla. Told me all about it. I'm like, why didn't you tell me sooner? And so I ended up getting in, I think it was early December, right after they got included into the S&P. So I caught that run up from there. And then then my friend probably 6 months later let me drive his Model Y. And I was like, that's it. I'm just putting more of my money in. And then as soon as I started this channel up last year, like the more I learned about it, the more I started to listen to the community, the more I understood what the company actually entailed. I was like, oh, there's so much more to this than just a stock owning company that's going to give me some money and money in returns. So I'm like, dang, I gotta get in this because this is world changing. This isn't just like changing me and my life and my wealth. This is going to change the world. I need to be a part of this. So that was it for me about a year ago. And right now I'm 69% in Tesla in my portfolio.
69, I love it. And Jennifer, how much of your stock portfolio is in Tesla?
Of my stock portfolio, 99.9% now. So I sold out of some other positions to do some tax loss harvesting because they were very down, and I don't think they're coming up anytime soon. So, oh, hi, servus. So yeah, so I just thought it was a great time to do some tax loss harvesting on some other companies because I know they're still going to be down in a couple months, so I can just buy them again later. And I wanted to book some losses while I could. For tax purposes. So I did. So yeah, I'm like 99% Tesla, holding 3,600 shares right now. So that's very exciting. And then the rest of our portfolio is real estate and then an annuity. So, we're rocking and rolling. I'm pretty excited. But I love Tesla and I feel like knowing everything about it is kind of part of my job, having so much invested. Like I have a lot of invested in it. So I feel like it's my company too. And so I need to know what's going on, where it's going, everything. So I try to learn as much as I can. And I try to follow like all the really smart people. And it's working out pretty good for me.
Good for you. Do you expect, Tim, that there will be some tax harvesting selling beginning of December?
I honestly don't know because we've seen so much selling going on right now. I really don't know.
They could do it now, right? I was wondering about it. I never did that, right? Because as you all know, I haven't been in America that long. But I think the rules are the following. If you sell and don't buy back the same stock within 30 days of the same tax year, then you have the tax loss, right? Then you can claim the tax loss.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means people have to do it between now and the 1st of1st of December, because then they have to run out those 30 days, right?
Right. So, I mean, and you could have realistically done at any point in the year. So I know for me, like anything I've been selling over the course of the year, I'm at a negative right now, but I've been selling a bunch of like junk stocks that I was just trying to free up cash to buy more Tesla with. So I'm at a loss for the year anyway, and I kind of assumed it was going to happen. So I'm not too concerned about that. So for me, I'm on the other end of the spectrum where now I have cash freed up where I can buy more Tesla at the end of the year versus selling.
Well, and that's what I did with the cash that I freed up. So I sold like my Palantir position. I had like 2,500 shares of Palantir, and I just sold the whole position, put it all in Tesla. And, because I didn't think that it was going to come up. It went down further. So I was like, ooh, maybe I should have waited. I mean, you don't want to like just make huge losses. I would like to buy it back lower anyways, but I had a feeling like, I think there's some room still for it to go. So I'm glad that I did sell when I did, put it in Tesla, even though Tesla was higher when I bought. It was like 220-ish, I think, when I did that, because I had sold some, and then I bought some back because I was like, oh, it went back down. Because I did very famously tweet out when I bought those 200 shares at 880. I don't know if you guys saw that on margin, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll fund the Y with this. It'll be great. You know, Elon said, buy the dip. And I tweeted it. I was like, okay, guys, hold me accountable. I bought 200 shares. This was like pre-split. That's not working out well, you know? So then I like freaked out, sold them, bought them back. I'm all over the place right now. So we're back to like, I'm just holding, not doing anything.
Yeah. I mean, I was asking myself, shall I do it? Because I don't have enough tax loss this year yet. And I'd love to have some because I had a really good year in income of my business. But then I'm so, and then I'm 95% in Tesla all around. But I'm so afraid to miss out in those 30 days. I can just feel it the second I sell them, and then 30 days later I can buy them back. It's going to be so much higher, right?
It's
sitting there.
It's too risky with Tesla. Tesla moves too fast.
It is,
so
right?
I picked companies that I thought were just stagnant or not going. There's nothing major that's going to happen. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Palantir. It's a fantastic company. It ain't going to move crazy in the next couple of months, in my opinion. Tesla moves, as we see, 38% in a month or whatever, you know, like that can happen. So I think Tesla's too volatile to do tax loss harvesting, in my humble opinion. It's not financial advice. And I just want to say,
but I only have that.
Tonight is not financial advice. Anything any of us say.
Mine neither.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to remember, so with tax loss harvesting, you can only take up to $3,000 of a loss for that year.
But you can drag them over, right? You can carry them over to the future.
Yeah. So they'll roll. It's just like real estate losses. You can only take up to 25,000 in real estate losses.
I would have a huge loss. I would have a huge loss if I sell today. That'll carry me a couple of years. And if I don't do it,
my mom
then I will never do it, right?
Right. Well, my mom says she still has losses from the .com year. I'm like, that's insane. But if you can only take $3,000 a year, then that makes sense, you know. But I think also if you get gains, so say you sell at a gain next year, say you make 100,000, then you can take, say you took 103,000 in losses the year before, that 103,000, from what I understand, that 100K is going to wipe out the 100K in gains, and you can take your 3,000 in loss.
Yes.
Yeah. It'll offset any gains that you have. That's how I've been using it.
Right.
Alexandra, I know for me, because I have, you know, a couple of side businesses also, I just make sure I write off other things. I have other expenses. And for me, I don't have a lot when it comes to the stock market anyway. So anytime I do have gains, I can offset it with business expenses because it all kind of lumps together from my full-time job. So that's the way I work it currently. But yeah, if there's any expenses, you can always wash those into it.
For me, it's really I hear you. For me, it's really, I did extremely well on my business side, like extremely well, nearly 3 times as much as usual. So I have a lot of income to declare. And at the same time, I have this outstanding tax law. If I do something about it, I would have to do something about it next 2 weeks. But I'm like, oh my God, if I sell 30 days, can you imagine sitting there for 30 days and watching the stock go up? I mean, I would be furious.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know that's the frustrating thing. And like we're talking so many people in my comments on my channel and a lot of people on YouTube or on Twitter, you know, we're talking about the same thing. And like Jen said, there's like this diverse split and it's everybody's Tesla bulls, but even in the Tesla bull camp, there's a split feeling that's going on. There's some people who are just very excited and taking this as an opportunity to buy more, and other people who are getting mad at Elon because their stock portfolio is down. And it's hard to juggle it because, you know, understand I've been in both positions now. I've been in a position where my emotions really got caught up in the stock market. I'm like, ooh, my portfolio is coming down. This isn't good. But now I've understood how the company works and how the stock market works, and we will turn around. That's my personal opinion, that we're going to turn around. And it's like, so to me, this is a great buying opportunity. And it's hard to try and work with a bunch of people who are emotionally involved, and you cannot get your emotions involved in the stock market.
Yeah, I think the people that are upset are the ones that like they don't have money, they don't have any money to buy. I mean, I'd be upset if I don't have any money to buy. So I understand that. You know, or like I said, they have loans out and those loans are adjusting. You know, the interest rates just keep going up. So people have seen margin go from like say 2.25% to 6.5%. That's
yeah.
It's a big difference. So
Big jump.
now what I will say about taxes.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Please.
Oh,
I think
what
we
I was
also
gonna say
have to
about,
think there are people who really, who shouldn't be in Tesla stock, but are passionate about it. Like, people who are retired, whose retirement depends on it, or people that just start off and just put every penny in it. And so really spare every cent to go into it. And if you have bought at the equivalent of 400 and you see stock today at 190, I understand why obviously, once you have a solid 500,000, million or more, you probably can stomach it much better. But if you're in the smaller size, I feel these people, and I hear them a lot because, with my big mouth trying to write letters to Elon and all the rest, they come back and tell me how pleased they are and how happy they are and whatever. And I appreciate that. But I really feel for some people who have lost a lot of money, and for them looking daily on a stock price going down is tough, really tough for them. I really feel for them.
Yeah, those are the ones that I found were the hardest in discussing with a lot of them, are the retirees who, are using this, in their 401k, just like the COVID crash, but at least we V-bounced out of that. But these times now, it's like, if people were literally trying to retire during these times, this is tough for them. And that is understandable. Anybody who is, going to be holding long-term, suck it up and deal with it. Honestly, I'm going to give you the tough love, just deal with it. But people who are retiring now, it is tough. It really is.
Yeah, or anybody that's using it. So I use the portfolio when I'm buying real estate as like our what do you call it? So you need a fund that your PITI account. So PITI stands for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So when you own multiple properties, then the bank wants to see that you have like 3 to 6 months of that, the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance for all your properties in an account that you are not using. Like in cash. So, but it can also be stocks. So sometimes that's, 90, 100 grand in cash that you're not using for the transaction. But if it's in stocks, then great, so, but if that's your PITI account and it needs to be a certain amount for you to conduct business, then I can see people like starting to get upset about that. So, I mean, I get it. There's a lot of reasons why you need your asset value to be a certain amount, like you're trying to qualify for loans or something, you're taking portfolio loans, I don't know. So what I was going to say though about like taxes and everything for you, Alexandra, or anybody that's like, oh, I want to do tax loss harvesting, but I'm afraid because of, how volatile Tesla is and stuff. There's so many other options to optimize your taxes. Like I'll do a video on taxes because I love tax. I love the tax code. It's written in a way to encourage certain behaviors. So the government wants to encourage you to build businesses and to buy rental properties to so that you can offer people places to live. Like the government cannot give everybody homes to live in, so we need landlords. So those two activities are heavily rewarded in our tax system, and there are ways where you can buy property and devalue it. Like you can take like the depreciation up front, especially for like commercial properties, and there's all sorts of fancy stuff. So there's things that if you're a high income earner, there are ways to negate your income other than tax loss harvesting on your
do your video portfolio. I'll watch that 5 times.
I will. It's there will be a tax series. So I will, if I ever do videos, which I probably will, they will be on real estate most likely, because I think there's so many great YouTubers for Tesla. And then I will like hop in and say hi to everybody on the Tesla YouTubes. Yeah, I am very passionate about it. So I will do one for you.
Good. Yeah, that's a very good idea. I'm very
Alexandra getting some love.
You, Alan.
All right, I got some questions here we'll jump into now as well. So we got Jay Lizard here. Does anyone have a theory about the macro environment being a conspiracy theory against growth companies? Could it ultimately be that the government knows that car companies are in a lot of trouble?
Well, I have one on that. I don't believe in conspiracy theories ever. Like ever. I mean, all this political crap and all, it drives me crazy. Whenever I hear conspiracy, I back off. Even though I may believe first what I hear, but when I hear how it's amplified and how it's becoming the thing, it's just not my thing at all. But if it would be a conspiracy theory and have rising taxes to protect OEMs, that's exactly what it does not. Raising taxes is absolutely the last thing they need, the absolute last thing, for two reasons. One, it makes car financing and leasing much more expensive. So their usual clients that come to them for a $200 a month lease, whatever, suddenly can't come anymore because it's not at $200 a month anymore. And the second is that their own debt, which they have because they're heavily indebted, costs them so much more money. So they're having 5 problems at the same time and are much more under the threat of these macro events and rising taxes being detrimental to them and being just the last thing that they needed to get them in serious trouble. So it will certainly not be in favor of the traditional car companies.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, like when they were doing the EV tax credit. We discussed several times on here about it being a bailout, a secret bailout for
It is
legacy automotive. But realistically, it's going to give Tesla even more of an advantage than anything. So while it may
because you can't do a law saying we give it only to GM and Ford, right? But
Right.
That is my reasoning. When I heard today saying, "Oh my God, if the Republicans win tonight, we're not going to have the Inflation Reduction Act," which is not an Inflation Reduction Act, but yes, we will, because the Republicans are as much in favor of the traditional car company. So we will have the IRA. I'm not worried at all that this will go away. The Republicans, if they win, need to prove to their base some hardcore Kardashian topics, right? I mean, they'll go after Hunter Biden. They'll do some, fuzzy stuff that will make some people happy, but they're not going to go after legislation. And the other thing is they'll have to trade. They'll have to trade because there is still a Democratic president. So they can't just, it's probably the lamest duck 2 years that's going to come.
Yeah, and I think the stock market's actually going to appreciate that, honestly, because having a lame duck government is, let's just kind of stalemate. Let's just be stalled for a little while. It's not a bad thing right now.
Completely agree.
That's very true. And I think, we all kind of know that Trump's probably going to announce he's running. And the minute that happens, the stock market's going to be very confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
You had more questions.
Black Jacket, when do you think Elon will make his move on the buyback, or do you think he will? Thanks. Enjoy your show, Tim. Thank you. Bring these beautiful ladies back often. Absolutely will. They are as brilliant as they are beautiful.
Thank you. You want to take that one, Jennifer, first? I can jump in afterwards.
I think buybacks are probably more your wheelhouse, because I don't understand like that genre as much as you do. All the finance and everything, I think you are amazing at. So I watch all the videos you're on for finance, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, so to bring it down, I think we have currently 3.13 billion shares outstanding, and which are worth less every day, but there we go. So we're now, I think, below 600 billion of market cap. And if they would buy back a certain number of those, they've issued. That's actually funny. Can I do that? Let me just show something, because I was just having a fit with Warren on Twitter on that, as so often. Yeah, I think I can share. I can share something, right? Slide.
Yeah, you did it once before. Let's see if we can make it happen again.
It only lets me do slides. Add file now. Well, never mind. Maybe I still have it. Yeah, I still have it there.
Because I do remember when you. I remember when you were on last too. We were talking about how doing the buyback at the price it was at. I think at the time it was $240, and we were talking about what an awesome buy it would be at $240, and now
at 190. Don't you agree? Right. So what we're pushing for is that they do. I mean, I hope at least 10 billion of buyback. I mean, what's 10 billion in 600 billion? Right? It's nothing. Granted, more the stock goes down, more 10 billion is money. But there we go. So why they have increased the stock a lot. We started 10 years ago around 1.5 billion. I cut it down now to the 300 price, to the 3-to-1 price bid. So 1.5, and we're now at 3. So they doubled the share count. Why? Because lots of employee issuance, including obviously Elon's tranches. So that was that and that. And then from time to time also just official stock issuance, the last one in December 2020, just around the S&P inclusion. Fine. All of that I can completely understand. But it's gone out of hand because they're having so much cash, right? They're currently sitting on nearly 20 billion cash, which they put in treasury bills and mutual funds and whatever else. And so rather than having this money sitting around that they can't use currently, I mean, they have all the money to do capital expenditure and build gigafactories and do whatever. It would be a really nice gesture to us who have carried this now the last, I mean, I wasn't there for 10 years, but there were people carrying this for 10 years and having their value diluted because every time they issue stock and they doubled the issuance, your share is less, right? And somebody who had a share at the beginning only has now half a share. I mean, it is still a full share, but the value of half a share in those terms. And so it would be nice to have, and we were, vocal about it. Leo Kilgan was about it. Gary Black wrote the letter. I did my part. And so it came up at the last earnings call, and Elon said, yes, we'll do it. And he was a little bit ambiguous, sort of, the board has to meet first. This has to go through a formal process and all that, which is true. But I mean, they can do a Zoom meeting like we do here, and that was it. And then they vote, and it's done. It's something that if you want it, you can do it. Then I heard from back channels, oh, they only want to do it in the first quarter of next year. And I was like, ugh. So we're trying to push it again because there are a couple of reasons why it would be good now. One is as of next year, Biden voted a law that will put a 1% tax on all share buybacks. So on 10 billion, that's 100 million. I mean, it's not huge, but it's 100 million just thrown out of the window. The second is the SEC is currently doing a change of law. It's in the proposal state. Currently, when a company does a buyback, they have to announce it either directly to the SEC or do a press release or both. They will announce something saying, oh, in the next couple of months or the next 2 years, we're going to do buybacks up to 10 billion, 20 billion, whatever, right? They will just throw summation out. It may be even less than that, but just they will announce that they do it. There has to be a starting point, and then it happens. And then the current law says they only have to keep us updated on the status of that at every earnings call, every end of quarter. That law is going to change, and they will have to report every evening. Okay, so it's much easier to do it now, to wait every day opportunistically on what's happening. And today at 190, you give it, buy it back, and tomorrow at maybe 200, you say, well, we don't anymore. And you just fiddle around with it rather than having to do reporting every evening. So those two reasons, other than the one that I really want them to buy now, because I think the price is sufficiently low to really get into it now, make me push for it again and again and again. Will we be hurt? I have no idea.
And then the question rolls right into Jay Lizard here. When do you what event do you see happening that will next cause Tesla jump 20% quick in one day? Do you think that could be the buyback that causes it to jump?
I mean, a buyback would be nice. The other thing that would be nice is that Elon declares that he is done with financing Twitter, that there are no Tesla sales necessary or whatever anymore. Just, something making it clear that this operation is over with, because there were things, and that may actually be the reason why this buyback is not happening so quickly. Let's say, I mean, we all know he didn't need to sell in that last, right? So why didn't he need to sell then? Maybe he had enough investors. We don't know, because it's a private company now. Or maybe a bank gave him a bridge loan, right? And this bridge loan comes up in a couple of days, in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months. What do I know? And so he knows he will have to sell in anticipation of the reimbursement of that bridge loan. So there's so many unknowns, and it would be just perfect that, somebody tells us where we are. And I don't think it's really going to be detrimental to the stock now anymore, because the stock is so low. If he would now just say, look, I still will need to sell 2 billion and I have to do that before the end of December, fair enough. Then it's out there. But the uncertainty is helping.
Yeah, I agree. It's like if he gave us clarity, at least as to what's going on, like at Twitter, because people seem to have a lot of trepidation, like what's going on? Why are there Tesla engineers there? And there seems to be people upset that there are Tesla, what they see as Tesla assets at Twitter. I do not see it that way. I see that I believe Elon purchased Twitter for several reasons, but one of the largest reasons being he purchased it for Tesla. And I say that because think about this. To make full self-drive possible, they needed a very large data set, right? So all the cars send all the information back to Tesla, right? All those miles driven, all those videos go back to Tesla, and it took years to make this huge data set. Well, now we're making a robot. The robot needs to be trained. He needs an enormous data set. And that would jump them ahead a lot if they had this huge data set, because all you need is like a really, really big data set and really great compute power, which they have now with Dojo. So we need a data set. Well, Twitter's a fantastic data set, and it's archival too. There's like over a decade of humans interacting, having conversations. We have Twitter Spaces where there's audio. He owns all of the IP, because if you ever read any of the terms and conditions of any of these platforms, you sign your soul away to the owner, and he's the sole owner of it. So he can decide to give the information to Tesla. So, when I was listening to Andrej Karpathy and Lex Friedman for the 4th time, I think, and writing my notes, I marked all of the minutes where it's like they said stuff. If you start at minute, I think it's like 40, I think, and go to minute like an hour and 15 minutes, you listen to that section and you think what I just said about like, no, he bought Twitter for Tesla because they're going to use it to train the robot. And then you listen to them talk about it. You're like, that's exactly what they're talking about. I mean, it will just blow your mind. So if he would just give some clarity
really
on that, I think he doesn't want to do that because he doesn't want people to act differently on Twitter, because when people know they're being watched, then they'll act differently. I don't know. So what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that's interesting. I've never thought of it like that at all. But my first reaction would be, if it's for Tesla, then Tesla should have bought it. Tesla has all the money, right? Why use his personal money? I don't think it's just for Tesla, though.
I think there's many reasons that he bought it, but I think that's one of the reasons. I think that's why there are Tesla engineers there, because what I think is happening is the Tesla engineers are figuring a way to facilitate all of the information that's on Twitter getting over to Tesla as a data set without sharing people's personal information, which you can do with like the Palantir Foundry software easily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I think those 50 engineers were lended, because that's what it was. They were put under a certain contract, lended to Twitter, for 3 reasons. The first one being making sure that none of the confidential information of Twitter was leaking in those days. I mean, you still had then 7,500 people in there in different locations and whatever, having access to everything. Now Elon was the owner, walking in with kitchen sink, and you just had no idea how motivated. I mean, you've put yourself in his chair. He was suddenly, writing this big check. I mean, it's not all his 44 billion, but I think his part is 31 out of it. So you wrote this big check, and you have no idea the next morning whether these people are going to be friendly, whether they're going to hack the system, whether it will work again, whether whatever. So my first reaction was that was very clever to put 50 people in there and just make sure that everybody's behaving, right? Like you're going into kindergarten and you put the teacher in there. The second is that they had to evaluate who to keep and not. They knew from the beginning that they would have to get rid of a certain the workforce. I don't believe it was just hot balloons when people were talking about 75% or 50% or maybe less. And so they needed a first appreciation of everybody's, I guess those 50 people were going into different groups and then had a day or two with these people and assessing who would be necessary to stay and who could leave and could be gone. So that was the second reason. The third one is the whole system. It was absolutely imperative that it stayed alive. Can you imagine if this would have been a blackout for 2-3 days? That would have been it. Mm-hmm. The company would have been worth half of it or not even. So they had to ensure that the key people from Tesla were sitting right next to the key people of Twitter, that nobody who had the magic hand on a magic button that could put it down was daring to do it.
Right, and
So I
it could
think
be,
that
it
was
could
much.
easily be both. You know,
Yes,
so
agreed.
Sam Harris wrote a book called Free Will, where he argued that like humans don't really have free will. We're very predictable. Like we just react to things in our environment, and you know, if you think about it, like you can affect mindset very easily. Like if someone is hangry and you feed them, they are not hangry anymore. Or if someone has a brain tumor, let's say, it can affect how their thought processes are. So, so in theory, if he is correct, and it's possible, then you can reverse engineer how a human thought process would work. So, you know, if you take how they made full self-drive, you know, because they've been working on this since 2008, so they've trial and errored a lot of things. And like Andre was really clear about, if you have a large enough data set and you have good compute power, you can do almost anything. So, you know, I think there was like several reasons. I think he wanted all the dirt, you know, because Twitter's got a lot of dirt. I think he wanted the free speech. Elon, you know, is a very moral person, but then also like, man, that big fat data set, that would take a decade to make. You know, and I think that's why he didn't make a new platform, and that's why he purchased a platform.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I actually came across a tweet. I don't know whether I've retweeted it, but if not, I will do now. Of a person that left Twitter, and that was describing a situation a couple of years ago. Jack was still in the CEO seat. He was asked to individualize data sets to sell them to a third party, meaning that, you know, your address and your behavior on Twitter and when you log off and when you log on and what you do was sold to somebody else who was able to do something on it. And Jack in the end canned it, but it was going on for quite a while in the group, and they were trying to convince him that this is the right thing to do. And he was at that particular moment the only person that could technically do it, because Twitter seemed to have been quite a mess, right, in terms of who does what and who is responsible for what. It just seemed like a complete chaos. So anyway, so he was the one, and then he felt very bad about it and sent an email to Jack and said, look, Jack, that's what I'm trying to do. If I give this data away to this client who wants to pay for it for a lot of money, it was a moment that Twitter was financially really in a dire situation, then we're giving away the most core information that we have about our users. And Jack canned it and said, no, we're not going to do it. And that was the end of it. And he then left Twitter. I don't know whether he was let go or whatever, but he left. But you're right. Obviously, there is data that is very individual and very rich. There's no doubt about it.
And now we have a use for it making a robot, because what we're really missing for robotics is the AI. It's not the movement. Movement is kind of, you know, for the most part been conquered. It's the brain.
Yeah.
I'm asking myself, is your brain on Twitter, Tim? I'm asking myself whether my brain is on Twitter.
Well, so it's the human behavior. So the human behavior is on Twitter. And that's really what it comes down to. And as Jen is alluding to, humans are very predictable. You know, we know what responses are going to be. You know somebody long enough, you're going to be able to anticipate what they are going to do and how they're going to respond and react. You know, this is what the government does to us a lot of times too. You know, they're like, hey, let's put something out there and just see how the people are going to react to what we're going to do. You know, sometimes we see that happen in the stock market. Let's put a feeler out there, see how the people are going to react to it before we actually go ahead and do it, just to see how it's going to respond. And so now we have Twitter with a lot of that information coming back to us with a decade of that to understand how human behavior is, and they can plug that right in. And now we've got with Tesla.
And now add to that.
Go ahead.
Add to that the fact that they will be soon identified, right? Because so far, so many people were, I mean, even if they stay anonymous on the platform, their handle, Twitter will finally have their real identity in the back, right? Because so far you could sign up with Twitter and they had nothing about you. Now they'll have your ID and they'll know very well who you are.
Right.
Yeah, but they can protect that, because like with the Palantir Foundry software, you can completely keep separate like identity versus the data set. So that was that was kind of a change with that software coming out. And what's very interesting is that is a Peter Thiel company, Palantir. Well, Thiel was part of the PayPal mafia. and knows Musk. So, and knows David Sachs. They all know each other. Sachs beat Thiel at chess once, and Thiel got all pissed off and stormed off. So they're all buddies. So I would not be surprised if that is really happening. And there was something else. So this is the other thing that was kind of like a hint to me that this is what was happening was, you know, Elon is adding to like 10-minute video and everybody thinks it's about YouTube. And I do think it's about YouTube as well. But how are we training the cars right now? With video, with auto-labeled video. We get like 500,000 videos a day, I think Elon said, come into Tesla now. He said that on the last earnings call. So if we are all of a sudden like producing all these videos as well, and you have to remember, like he has to own the IP, I think, to be using it, or someone's going to sue him, you know? So it's not like he can just be like grabbing video off the internet of humans doing stuff and then using that to train the robot, you know? So the fact that he owns Twitter is actually phenomenal for Tesla. And when people realize what this is to Tesla, if he does make it clear that like, oh, there's a connection, we're going to use this, and it's really going to be a huge advantage for bot, that's maybe 20% or more easily.
Oh, yeah. And Jay Lizard here saying, I would think Twitter is corrupted data set, especially with the bots. There's a big reason why Elon is now going to be charging $8 because the first thing he wants to do is clean out the bots. Then you can get a cleaner data set. And that's going to fix that right there. And, you know, and thinking about how, you know, my thoughts when it came to Twitter and Tesla is Twitter, you know, when you get into a Tesla in the future, you're literally going to see on your screen, Twitter is going to be there, x.com, whatever it's going to be, will be the brains behind your vehicle in the future. But now Jen taking it that one step further, you know, with all the data that we're going to be getting in to actually take the car and Optimus to the next level, that's brilliant. I think you're definitely onto something. And then thinking about with Tesla engineers being there, those Tesla engineers know the code that goes into FSD, so they can tie the two together very easily.
It will happen faster this time.
And I saw a couple of tweets because initially, you know, you had the whole journalism mafia going on about none of these Tesla engineers has any idea how wonderful the code is at Twitter, and they won't be able to do anything with it. That died one day later. That didn't take long. That, you know, obviously the guys that had left Twitter then told the journalist, well, you know what, they came in there and they knew immediately what was to be done. So don't underestimate ever anybody coming out of that Tesla company. There's no way around it.
Oh, let's see. Oh, and then this actually ties into a little bit of what so if you guys do not follow Alexandra and get her her newsletter, definitely do it. She was talking a lot about things. So agreed. PR team needed. Agree. So what do you guys feel about the PR team needed for Tesla?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about it for 6 months now, right? I just, you know, I give Elon the credit that at one moment, probably everybody thought this Twitter deal is not going to go through. So what the heck, why worry about it? But one of the things he should have done, you know, I mean, this guy is so brilliant. I can't believe he wouldn't think in multiple dimensions, is if the Twitter deal goes through, I have to be sure I protect the brand of Tesla, and I need some people other than me in place to speak for Tesla, right? And that didn't happen, and that was my newsletter of yesterday. So the reason is, I mean, today Martin sent a very nice tweet saying they were elected best IR company among the car makers. Fine, congratulations, very, very good. But I mean, I hate it when now suddenly we compare ourselves to the car companies, because there's nothing comparable to the car companies within Tesla, right? We should compare ourselves to the Apples of this world or whatever. And I'm sure Apple has a much better both communication and IR company. I really appreciate everything Martin does. Just put that out there. I think he's really a great guy and a good IR spokesperson for Tesla. But it's a 2-person team, right? The 6th largest mega cap in the world has a 2-person IR team that also jumps into communication whenever there's a fire to be turned down. I mean, what is this? It's all good about lean machine and everything, but this is just getting ridiculous now.
Yeah, it's sort of like their technology when it comes to their earnings calls. Like, come on, guys. 6th largest company, let's spend some money.
A mic? Exactly, a mic. test the mic, do something about it. I mean, we were all here 10 minutes before trying to make sure and I even took my fake screen off. You're suddenly seeing my real. I think it's because it's getting dark, so I have this counter light. I thought, what the heck?
No, it looks good.
The heck, you see my mess.
There you go, Jay Lizard. And I want to give a shout out to Jay Lizard. I reached out to all my subscribers looking for some assistance on my channel, and he gave me a lot of great advice. So thank you, sir, for all of that. So question, did Alexandra ever hear back from Warren Buffett to buy Tesla stock? Can you think of anyone who might be interested in buying or standing up for Tesla? How about hosting an EV car race?
There is an EV car race coming that we're going to, right, Alexandra?
Exactly. We're gonna install it in Vegas. But let me start with the beginning of the question. So I never wrote that letter to Warren Buffett. It was just, there was one thing after the other. It's on my list. I have a lot of arguments, and I actually have a co-author for it who is a very good person who has even more background than me. So I'm very happy that we're gonna do it together. But just one thing came to the next, and always something else to address. So this one is still on the line, and I don't think it's urgent because I don't think Warren Buffett will purchase Tesla soon. But we're going to actually address it to his two lieutenants, the younger ones, the ones that convinced him in 2016 to go into Apple. I mean, you have to understand, the Apple phone came out when? In 2006, 2007, something like that. It took the guy 10 years to get used to Apple. It took the guy enough time that Steve Jobs was gone, Tim Cook took over, there were share buybacks, everything was going, and then he finally in 2016, 3 years after they got investment grade, 3 years after they started doing share buybacks, that Warren Buffett got in. I mean, and he's a very sympathetic gentleman, no doubt, and has a good standing. And I was very keen on him when I was 20, 30 years younger. I'd listened to everything he had to say, but he's certainly not ahead of the curve, right? So hoping that Warren Buffett jumps into Tesla just because we write a letter, no. I think we want to write a letter because I want to compare it to his Apple investment, which was late, and I want to tell him, look, don't be so late this time, and to his BYD investment, which was early. That was actually surprisingly early because he actually went there for the battery part, because they were manufacturing lithium batteries for Apple and whatever, and so he understood that, and he was right on that, and now it evolves into EVs, and now he's actually pulling back a bit, right? So I want to undo all that and make him understand that EV is better than just a battery business, because you actually see the BYD numbers that it's getting better for BYD now that they're doing cars, not of course of Tesla. So that's my letter. Those are the two parts I want to put in, but there's no urgency for that one. And I want to, this is a letter to Warren Buffett, so I can't just write it in 24 hours and be happy with it. I have to digest, make sure this has gone all the way I want to go. So no, it's not written, so he couldn't have gone back. And then can you think of anyone who might be interested in buying or standing up for Tesla? I don't think anybody wants to buy Tesla. I mean, a huge person, and I don't think Elon wants anybody to have a huge chunk of Tesla. I mean, we obviously have Leo Kogan, who has now a huge chunk and who is as much of a Tesla enthusiast as we all are, and who continues buying. I think he bought another 20,000, 21,000 today. And then about the EV car race. So, oh yeah, he's great. Mm-hmm. And the EV car race. So we're all meeting next year in November in Vegas for the Formula One. And the thing that really surprised me, and I think there's something in the making, is Kimball yesterday, Elon's brother, followed the official Formula One Twitter account. So I do believe, because I know the Formula One in Europe is trying to do, and they're already doing EV car races. Mm-hmm. I do believe they want to add something on EVs to the Vegas one, because that's going to be so prestigious, middle of November next year. So that'll be great. But in any case, we're going there, right, Jennifer?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'll be there.
Yep, I will definitely be there. I'm very excited.
Yeah. So quickly going back to the Warren Buffett thing in Apple, I actually was doing some research on the charts as to when he actually purchased Apple. And there was still obviously some good growth with Apple after he bought it. He ironically bought it right before the Fed started raising interest rates again. Like, I don't know if that was the timing he did it with. I don't know if that's how he buys it. But that ironically hit me, was like, because the interest rates were really low for quite a while. And as soon as they started going up again, that's when he bought.
I think he bought because at that moment, and I don't recall the number anymore, but it was a huge number. Apple had huge amounts of offshore profits that they didn't want to bring back to the US. And then Trump, in his opening speech, said that's one thing he wanted to stop the tax or reduce the tax to a much lower level. And that actually triggered Apple to repatriate a lot of profits. And I had a feeling it was around that time that Warren Buffett said, okay, if that all this money is coming back to the US, that may be good enough for me now.
That makes sense.
You know, and if he's really interested in batteries, like if Warren Buffett invested, you know, in BYD for the batteries, then maybe point out to him about the new Megapack factory that's being scaled. It's a, you know, what is it, a 40 gigawatt hour? Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, enormous,
it's very large,
right?
It's very large. Megapacks are really expensive. They're huge. The last time I checked, there was a 3-year waiting list for Megapack. And you know, the Hornsdale project down in Australia, which would be very hard to do again for the finances of it, because it was like amazing. They made their money back. The people that had bought the project, like within a year, the financials are fantastic. But you can still do really great with Megapack. So I think, you know, it just makes sense all day long. That's why we have a wait list on it. And I think if he really sees that, I think people are not seeing Tesla Energy. I think that's the problem. And we are going to be ramping that. So he needs to get in it before, because that could be another thing that brings it up 20% as well.
Sure, but at the moment it's still small. I mean, at the moment it's still. I wish it was bigger, and I'm very happy they're ramping it up, and it will become bigger thanks also to the Inflation Reduction Act, because it's just going to be so much more profitable to build batteries here. I mean, like I said, I know in my head what I want to write to him, but I want to be so sure that every line is convincing, right? Because I mean, obviously, I don't expect an answer, but at least I want to be sure that this can be discussed even beyond the Tesla community, right? Because there's just stuff he could address now. I do believe there are personal reasons he doesn't want to do it. He thinks probably Elon is still a kid. I always say Elon has his Sturm und Drang, how the Germans say, you know, his adolescent age behavior from time to time, and that turns off a couple of people, and I'm sure he's one of them. The other thing is he's very friends with Bill Gates, and Bill Gates obviously seems to hate, I don't know, for whatever reason, Elon. And so, you know, there's personal stuff in there. So I just want to make sure that every line is as poignant as it can be. So it will take a bit of work, and I'm very happy about my co-author, because he's just better than me. So I'm very happy to have somebody very good with me.
Do you think Elon's trying to remove the key man risk in a way by kind of being a little out there, where people are like, hey, maybe it'd be better if he wasn't the CEO? And then when people start thinking that, then there's no key man risk.
Yeah, it's so funny how I hear the
dichotomy that's You're really clever.
Yeah, it's like whenever you hear the Tesla Q, is like, you know, Elon is the one who's bringing the stock price down right now, but you know, what happens if Elon's not there? It's like you can't have both. Like the argument does not stand and hold water because of how they're presenting it. But yeah, I don't know that. I know obviously Gary Black talks about it all the time, about that's one of the issues that's out there. You know, they really need just somebody that can.
But you know that Gary and me actually are quarreling about this. This is one of the 2 or 3 points on which we cannot agree. I would like Elon not to be CEO of Tesla, not because I want him to stay at the head of engineering. I want him to be, you know, the key person to drive Tesla and make them all sufficiently afraid so that they produce and don't get into any, you know, typical corporate America structure. But I think being CEO is just such a pain in the back. And I would love to have another official key person for Tesla that will be probably much more boring than Elon, but that people can, you know, sort of relate to easier, just because Elon is tiring, right? I mean, we love him and we take it, but there are people who are more neutral or more negative, and they just can't take it. I said it a couple of times. My preferred person would be, or my preferred strategy would be that Tesla buys Redwood brings back GB Straubel, and GB Straubel would be the CEO. I would love it because they trust each other. He's just so much more calm. Every time he comes on CNBC, I'm like, okay, that will be it. Just calm down, bring it down a notch, bring it down. And at the same time, he could just continue with his new toy, that's Twitter. So when I say that to Gary, he goes, no, I'm investing into Tesla. Oh, he will hear me and he'll go, you didn't imitate me correctly. There you go. He would go, no. Elon has to say the CEO. I'm in Tesla because Elon is the CEO. I'm like, no.
Elon can stay with Tesla and he can be the chief engineer, just like he's the chief engineer at SpaceX. He's the chief engineer at SpaceX, and it's amazing. He's not the CEO.
Yeah. I looked that up, and at SpaceX, he is CEO and I think chief technology.
I thought it was
whatever.
Gwen. I thought Gwen was CEO.
And she's president. She's president. She's president and she is COO at the same time, or something like that. They split the thing, and he still has the CEO title. But anyway, he allowed somebody to be there officially, and that just. And do you ever hear anything about SpaceX? I mean, apart from that story with the horse, but other than that, we never heard anything from SpaceX, right? So it's just smooth sailing, and they're executing. It wasn't always like that, but they're just executing, and that's where we want to get with Tesla. Tesla is such a huge company with so much potential. We just want to get that noise down and more down and even further.
They have the same guy though. Elon is the same dude at both companies. The difference is one of them is publicly traded and one of them is private.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to the future when
No, go ahead, Tim.
I'm looking forward to when they bring the band back together, and we've got JB Straubel working with them, and we got Andre back, and everybody's going to be back on the team together again in the future. I can see it happening for sure.
Me too. And I think it's actually coming quicker than we think now, because I do believe, when Elon puts on Twitter that he's currently in hell, I mean, he must be in hell. Believe me. I mean, you don't buy a company and a week later you put up you're in hell without understanding that this is going to be many more weeks than you had anticipated, much tougher job. You have to probably substitute these advertisements revenue for quite a while to make sure they really want to come back, and then pay higher prices. So there's so much to it that I hope, I mean, I have no clue, but speculating that I hope that there is a solution not far away. And I would really love that. And obviously that would also help, do I then need a comms team? Problem? Because that person will automatically put in place a more traditional communication, right? That why at the moment my request is for a PR and comms team? Because it has to counterbalance Elon, but that is such a job. Can you imagine if you would be in charge of communications and everything you say and do actually has to first go through Elon, and then if he doesn't like it, well, that's canned, and then it's the next one. So it would be much better if we just level the playing field a little bit more.
Well, I think Elon didn't want a PR team because they had a PR team, and he felt like PR is just not effective at all because, he's like, well, we'll say something and then the media is just going to spin it their way anyways. But now he is the media, like things have changed. So maybe he might be open to a PR team now that he has Twitter because he has his own platform.
Yeah, I know.
And here, Farzad. How's it going, Farzad? If you're still watching here, Alexandra is the first person that started swaying me towards needing PR. Elon owning Twitter has amplified that, not for Tesla's sake, for Elon's. And that's so true. I mean, just the amount of FUD I have been getting lately on the channel, on Twitter, about Elon this, Elon that. It's rough out there right now. And somebody who could kind of smooth over Elon would not be a bad idea.
Yeah. And the thing is, today, for the first time, I heard talking about Elon Q, right? We're not talking about Tesla Q anymore. We're talking about Elon Q. And that scares the heck out of me. I mean, if there's one person in the universe that doesn't deserve all this hate, it's him, right? He tried to stay apolitical for a very long time. He tries to just smoothen things out, bring peace to where he can, whatever. He's always misunderstood. Whatever he does, it's never enough or not good enough. And now suddenly being so much on the radar, every tweet he does is scrutinized. The journalists are smelling blood. There's no doubt about it. They just want to really, it was like when Trump came up. When Trump came up, Trump actually saved Twitter. If you read all those old tweets from the 2016 about Twitter, Twitter was bankrupt. And then came Trump, and that completely doubled usage again, and people were on there and whatever. And that's what's currently happening. I mean, we've seen the curves that Elon put up. People are back here because that's what's happening, but also because that's where the whole hate and the whole excitement and whatever happens. And so, yes, he has a target on his back, and he has every day to fight it. And thank heavens he's quite strong and can ignore most of it. But it would really be good to just, do all the stuff that he doesn't usually like to do. I mean, he said multiple times he doesn't like to be CEO. He just didn't find anybody that was good enough to do it. So search. There are people out there.
That's very true. And I think that Elon's being attacked so much because he has taken on the establishment. And they are freaking out, like they're losing the election. And it doesn't matter so much if it's the Republicans or the Democrats. It's the establishments, the elites, the ruling elites. They didn't like Trump either because he wasn't part of the establishment. That's why they fight him so hard. And now they've put Elon in the same camp. So I would even venture to say that some of the Elon FUD is manufactured and paid for by the ruling elites and is not actually real people.
Oh yeah, sure. And they feed the journalists, and they tell the journalists to
they own them,
produce even more, and produce more and make it an even bigger story that it's worth saying. It's just it's crazy, and we're paying the price for it. Let's just face it. Retail investors have carried this stock for 10 years. Again, not any of us because we've been only here for 2-3 years, but carried them into big stock dilutions, right? Which was all part of it, and it all worked fine. The S&P inclusion brought a lot of extra value. Tesla performed well. I mean, there's absolutely nothing to say about Tesla's engineers and Tesla's execution, no doubt about it. But now has come the moment where this all has to move into adult word, right? It has to go from this adolescent state that was just wonderful, this kid that grew up and suddenly was 6'5" and is wonderful, has to now become a young adult who sort of lives with the majority of people, not just among other teenagers and engineers and nerds that understand him, but has to get out in the world and get understood.
I think that it'll calm down once we get like a Republican nominee for 2024, and then they have someone else to attack, especially if it's Trump, because they'll be busy attacking him then, and the spotlight will come off of Elon, and especially when things settle down with Twitter, I think it's going to shake out. It's going to be a little rough though. It's going to be a hard Christmas is all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. And Farzad bringing up a great point here. I think if Tesla posting a record Q4 proves that Elon can step away and allow management to run the business. That's actually a great point, because if he's distracted with Twitter right now and Tesla can still perform at the top level, that's a great point.
Taking away the key man risk again.
Yeah, you're right. How did you like those October numbers out of China?
Yeah, I was good with them. Obviously the domestic deliveries were not what they would normally be, but still it's the first month of the quarter. So that's kind of expected. So that really wasn't bad, but we still had record numbers. I mean, we're still going up.
I look at it more as like a long-term, I look at it as a long-term investment. As much as this is freaking me out, I'm trying to learn to go with it, because I am planning on not selling anything till at least 2030. We don't need the money. My husband still works, so I try to stay rational. But of course, you have emotions, you get tied up into stuff. You're like, oh my God, the world is ending, because there's war in Ukraine and there's all this other crazy stuff going on, and so you're trying to fight it. The best investors are probably psychopaths, honestly, because they don't have any emotions about it, and I think that with China, I just kind of go, it's still COVID over there, and it's going to pass. This too shall pass. It is not going to last forever, because viruses are really unstable, and it will mutate and it will change into something. It will either get really, really bad and wipe itself out, or it will get really like a flu and nothing, and it'll be fine.
Which happened here, right? I don't really understand why in China they're still so obsessed about the zero COVID policy. Yeah. I mean, I'm not knowledgeable about China at all, but it seems to bring with it a certain recession. I hear people out of China telling me, they have problems getting older people into hospitals because hospital is only running on urgent care now. Or there are lots of other things that are happening where you feel China is really dense and avoiding any extra costs. And all that for the benefit of making sure they can cover any COVID cases, right? And they still have their whole zero COVID policies in place. It really frightens me.
I think that they are trying to distract from their actual financial issues. So in China, the way that the Chinese invest is they did primarily have all their money in real estate and in like one company, and that one company defaulted. So that you have whole cities and towns and stuff that are empty. Like they overdeveloped and didn't have any customers for it. That company went bankrupt and they defaulted. And they're so big that the Chinese government can't afford to bail them out. Like that's how big this company is. So China's having real financial problems and they need to wag the dog. They need to like distract from that. And so I think that's part of it. I think this like semi-Cold War that the US and China are trying to start over Taiwan is about that. I think Biden trying to go to war in Ukraine and that not really working out for him, so moving on to China. I think that is trying to start a Cold War because wartime economies bring us out of recessions. We're going right into a recession. And he's like, oh, I got to fix this because I said I was going to spend all this money and we don't have an economy that's going to support that. So I need a Cold War. I need some sort of wartime economy. So I think that's what, China and even our administration is trying to do.
Yeah,
I know, it's crazy.
You're right. It still scares me. It's right.
Yeah,
And you feel like peasants, right?
Yeah, and what
you feel like.
And what I try to remind a lot of people is because last year when Elon was selling became known as the stock whisperer. Right? I mean, I would calm everybody down and be like, look, it's like stocks go up and down. It's going to happen. Look at history. We've gone through war times before. We've actually been in war more often than we haven't been in war. We've gone through all of these times. The stock market's going to be down. It always recovers. We will always make all-time highs. That's just how we have gone. So we need to take a look at these times and understand that when you look back at history, every time we have gone through one of these times, that has been the time everybody looks back at and says, I wish I bought more then. Obviously, as we said before, not financial advice, but this is just the time where you look at it and you say, all right, we're recognizing that now. If you can recognize that in these times and say, we're going to get through this, whatever's going on, whatever's causing it, why ever they are doing it, we're going to get through it. We are going to come out of this. We'll get through this bear market. We'll get to a bull market again, probably within the next 12 to 18 months is my guess. And we're going to come out of this. And we're going to look back at these times and be like, dang, I wish during all of that FUD peak time, we were buying more.
Yeah, we're about at the price. Well, when we hit $187 a share today, we were at like the pre-S&P inclusion price, I think.
Yeah, Gary had mentioned it, that we were at actually the lows of COVID, especially when it comes to PE ratio. We were at the low of COVID when we hit 187.
It's completely ridiculous. We're lower than December 2020.
Yeah.
Right.
But there you are.
Yeah. So, but if you think about that, if you have cash today, what a deal.
Oh, I do. And I buy it.
Way better now than it was then. Like we've got a credit upgrade. We're in the S&P 500. We're making a robot now. Like the company's making, 1 million cars a year. Full self-drive, that's going to roll out to everybody any minute now.
Yeah, because at that point we had just become profitable. I think that was when we had our first profitable quarter. Was back then.
Well, no, we had sufficient. We had sufficient because if I recall it right, the S&P was that you had to have 3 successive positive quarters, and we were actually at our 4th one at the end of September, and everybody was screaming, saying, "Oh, because it's Tesla, you wait extra long," and then they announced it in November for December. They announced it 3 weeks before, and that's when the stock ran up.
Yeah.
I may have some of the details wrong, but that's about it.
Oh, hold on. I got to give a shout out. Here's my son. Thanks, dude.
Oh, hi, Ben.
Hi, Ben.
He sends me a text, check your damn chat. I was like, I'm checking it, buddy. I love my kid. He's awesome.
How old is Ben?
He is 15. He's going to be 16 at the end of December, getting his license. And honestly, I was actually going to get my Tesla, give him my car. His grandfather on his mother's side was awesome enough to get him an older Mustang. So that was awesome for him. And I told him that if he does well in college, I will buy him a Tesla. So that
there
will be
you go.
car.
That's what I did with my kid. And that was that. Never saw that Tesla again. Great.
It's awesome.
And thank you, Chris. We need an Elon. We need an Elon Media channel, an easy way to post all trusted Elon creators in one location. I agree, and I think Twitter is going to be a great place for that in the future. Just saying, Farzad, Ross Gerber, Dave Lee, Rob Maurer, Stephen Mark Ryan, Everyday Astro, and me. Like, thank you. I'm honored to be listed with those fellas. So that's awesome.
I think they started that. There were some things going. Tesla 24/7 started that, but I mean, it's obviously difficult to upkeep. And currently, Twitter is not easy to do that. So I think once they have their videos set up the way we want it, which is going to be a couple of months, but I think that's going to be great.
Oh yeah.
On top of it, if it's a way of monetizing, I'm just wondering how they will monetize. I mean, I don't know. If everything he wants to do, it's just going to be so much bigger, right? Because YouTube is obviously today only video. So if you suddenly have this intense, immediate chat version together with live video, together with recorded video, everything there, you need absolutely perfect search engines to be able to locate everything. This is going to be the hugest data set ever out there.
It's funny you say that.
Jennifer.
It's funny you say that. See, this is the side that I get really into the weeds. It's like all the tech and the science I love. With the financials and SEC stuff, I'm like, I don't know that stuff. But so Lex and Andre talked about this, about search, and they are convinced that you can do better search. And I'm telling you, you listen to that part of their talk from minute 40 to like hour and 20. And they mentioned search. I want to say it's like hour and 14 minutes. And if you're thinking like Twitter, you're like, these guys know that that's what's going on. It's crazy. Like listening to it after Elon getting Twitter and all this stuff happening, and with that mindset, you're like, they're totally talking about that.
Now, Jen, I don't know if you knew, about a month ago, there was a quick tweet that was out there about something about how Tesla was talking to Google. And
I did see that they were going to partner. I think they are still talking. So I'm trying to stay on top of it. If I hear anything, I'll tweet it out.
Yeah, because just thinking about, think about just the scope that Twitter can be. If Elon likes to make it like a WeChat and have it be literally everything. Google obviously being the #1 search engine. When you go onto Bing, the most search term on Bing is Google. So, thinking about how big that is, learning what the search engine could be and how much ad revenue they bring in on Google to be able to do that on Twitter as well is massive.
Well, and it would be smart for Google because, go ahead.
The talks were what, between Tesla and Google or between Twitter and Google?
Tesla. So because this is before Elon had officially bought it. So it was between Tesla and Google. So I'm wondering if the engineers that were talking to Google are the ones who are now over at Twitter.
Yes. And I think that it may have been about the data set that Google has.
That Google has? Or
well,
that
yeah,
Tesla
because
has?
before Elon purchased Twitter, like if Tesla and Google were talking, right? Because in theory, we need a large data set for the robot. Like we need how people think, talk, act, how they interact, so that we can train the robot to think. So, because we can put sensors on people and train them just like the cars. Like right now, the robot thinks it's a car. It's pretty funny. They were talking about it in the talk, and they were like, yeah, for the first demos, we were going to put it out in a parking lot because the robot thinks it's a car. And I always joke that Teslas are car-shaped robots. Now they're robot-shaped robots. We're making progress.
Yeah,
I'm pleased you're out there, Jennifer, because this is not my world at all, but I'll get used to it.
Oh yeah, I remember them talking about the same thing, and it made total sense because when you're putting an FSD AI into a robot, the FSD is based upon being a car, so its spatial recognition is based upon being a car, not a robot. So it has to adjust to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then, you can put sensors on people. They can put sensors on, hard hats and stuff, and then they can train it to move as a person, but it's got to think as a person. And to think as a person, you got to listen to people conversations, read people books, watch videos of people interacting. Because a lot of think about it, human communication, 70% of it is nonverbal. How hard was it to communicate with people when you had to wear a mask?
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. And you make a great point because as Elon said, when it comes to the Optimus initially in a factory, when it's just moving things from point A to point B, probably not going to need that same communication AI. But when you start talking about it being in homes, and Elon's saying that, we'll have it in homes within 5 years, I'm like, I can't see that. But now as you're bringing this up, that makes a lot of sense because if he's going to take that human AI from Twitter and put it into Optimus, then getting it into the homes to actually have conversations with people like a Siri, like an Alexa.
It'd be super fast because we already have chatbots. We already have chatbots that can pass the Turing test practically. They're very convincing. And, in the home, like Lex had said,
No, this is the same thing we had last Friday, Jen. Same problem is going on. You're turning into Optimus. It's okay. You're Rosie the robot. We're good.
Because
you are actually Optimus, right?
Because every time Jen starts talking about this stuff, the bigger
she turns into Optimus.
Kind of shut her down. She knows.
We don't know what it is, but my theory is that the powers that be are trying to silence me because I'm right about my conspiracy theories. So I message these to Warren, and he always tells me I'm crazy. So just so you guys know.
Oh yeah, and then here, Chris also bringing up, he also had a meeting with Dogecoin developer a few months back, and we know that Elon obviously is a big proponent of Dogecoin, and we know that he said in the past that he is going to potentially be using it as tipping, probably a currency over on Twitter as well. Now I do add some Dogecoin to my portfolio every day because I anticipate this coming, so I think that's going to be a form of currency over on this Twitter platform as well.
So you're buying Dogecoin now?
I do. I just only $1. It's $1 every single day into Dogecoin. It's like, that's
funny because I had people. I have on my Twitter feed a tipping jar, and I think we're at $150 now, which I think I'm very good now. I always promised I only do that tipping jar until I have a first stock. Now the stock coming down and the tipping jar slowly moving up. We'll probably meet that soon. I hope so. But anyway, so the other day somebody tipped me in Dogecoin, and I had then in the end 4 little Dogecoin tips, which then were worth $1.80, right? So now I'm a Dogecoin holder, which I never anticipated. There you go.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is if he is going to be making Dogecoin actually be the tipping jar in a currency, making it be equal to $1 would make a lot of sense over on Twitter. So right now at 10 cents a Dogecoin, I mean, that's a 10x on your money. That's just my opinion. I think it's going to easily get there. Maybe it gets to be the $8 that everybody's paying for the blue check mark. Who knows?
I mean, I don't think he can just make it $1, but what I think is amazing is if he makes it a currency, it will be the first cryptocurrency that's used as a currency effectively. And that will be the proof that it can be used as a currency. And I think that is also another reason why the establishment does not like Elon, because that is going to devalue their fiat currency. Anything that's going to challenge their power, they're not going to like.
Oh, she's back.
You're back.
Oh,
you're
good.
back.
She's back.
See? There we go. They're like, oh no, her conspiracy theories are over. We'll give her a mic back. I don't do anything different. It just does that. Only during conspiracy theories that sound
seriously
really
the exact same thing happened on Friday. The weirdest thing.
I promise one of my dear friends who actually worked at Google, so he's super smart, is coming over Thanksgiving week, and I will have a way better AV setup.
There we go. As soon as you said Google, we were gone.
Yep. We can't be talking about Google. Nope. Let's not badmouth it. Let's see. Brooke Chen here saying, "Hey Tim, did you see the I don't know what MKBHDS video talking about some things Twitter could do to become more profitable. I think he wanted Musk to hear some advice about making Twitter more profitable. I did not see that, but just thinking about like a lot of stuff that we were just talking about on here, bringing in everything. And I know Elon said back in 2000, actually, he had X.com, the whole thing. And I guess that whole plan he doesn't have anymore. I'm sure he remembers most of it. And coming out with all of different things and being a financial institution as well. I mean, like, Cash App and SoFi are out there. Having it literally be everything, you can go onto your X.com platform. You can go on there. You can buy your stocks. You can order pizza. You can call it an Uber. You can do whatever you want from this app. You can search dating profiles. Whatever you want to do will be on this app. And I think that's coming. And I think that, and obviously, if you take all of the different social media platforms that are out there and every facet and all the revenue that they generate and put it together in one platform, just do the math on it.
Will it still be called Twitter, or you think he's going to call it X?
He'll change it to X. I have no doubt.
Yeah. And I think he's uniquely set up to do this because of the Starlink constellation.
Starlink, PayPal. I mean, everything comes together, right? I don't know whether you've seen that 2018, I think, episode of the third row benchmark, where the third row pod or whatever it was called, podcast, where they interviewed him and around that round table in that special house in Los Angeles. I don't remember the whole story, but there he explained it all, what he wanted for X and how he wants to develop it and whatever. And you just listen to that, and I think that's the business plan he has currently for Twitter.
Oh,
and it's all in there. The video is in there.
I did see it.
Yeah. It's really good.
Alexandra, yes.
Tim, more questions.
There you go.
I am Tobias von Deutschland. Und Jennifer spricht auch Deutsch.
Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch.
I don't know much anymore.
There you go, Tobias.
We were talking about before we went on, we were talking about the German, and I took 3 years of German in high school, and I remember very little of it.
I took Spanish.
Yep. You did. I took French and learned nothing. And English, which I still have my accent. There you go.
Let me see. More questions. Let's see what we have here. Didn't Elon say it was going to be better than PayPal? Yes. I mean, so obviously Elon owning PayPal is going to benefit him owning Twitter now, because he's got a lot of background in it.
And he really hates the current PayPal structure. Exactly. He really hates PayPal now. And they're using at the moment Stripe, which is obviously the biggest PayPal competitor. And that says it all. So if you currently pay your $3 or $5 or soon $8, you pay them via Stripe.
Let's see. No more questions in here. What else do you guys did? Because I know, Jen, we talked about your conspiracy theory. Alexandra, we talked about your newsletter. What else do we have going on? So we got the elections tonight. I tried to win Powerball yesterday. Unfortunately, I did not. Somebody in California won.
But you see that somebody won? I thought for a long time nobody won, and then they suddenly announced that a single ticket won those $2 billion. I mean,
I know. Single ticket in California. And of course, I have all people coming out being, oh, imagine that. There was a delay on what was going on with the Powerball count, and then somebody in California won. Like, oh, let's bring up
of all places, right? And can you imagine the California state going, tick, 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 give it to me, those taxes, give it to me.
That person's coming out with 100 million. That's it. They're going to take.
I know. Oh, a little bit more, but not a lot. I can tell you that.
Oh man, it's
Sacramento's
so
calling.
I'm saying, and Alexandra, obviously, because you live there. My parents and my sister live there, and it's like I thought being in Connecticut it was bad, but it's way worse over there.
California is special because it's so beautiful, right? I just have to go out for a walk and I'm like, come on, calm down. You love it here. There's no doubt. And Santa Barbara is really very special. But then you read their politics and whatever, and it's really going crazy. Like you've got some really, really crazy people out there going very far into the bushes. I mean, this is not Democrat anymore. This is like really strange stuff. So it is what it is.
Well,
yeah, it's a lot like that in Virginia too. California, Virginia, and New York are where you have the large cities, right, that are blue, and they have large populations, but it's just a couple of cities, So like in New York, it's like Manhattan, well, New York City, and then in Virginia, you have DC's right there, so you have like Northern Virginia, and Northern Virginia, it's like it has a huge population, so they kind of carry the vote. and they're blue, but it's a very small demographic. And then the rest of the state is super red. Like we saw, one of my friends sent me the numbers early this morning for our county, right? And he's like, oh, look at the numbers for our county. 99% Republican from early voting.
Wow.
That's how red my county is.
Tim, what are you reading? You seem like completely surprised.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm reading. So Brian V, and I'm trying to check the validity of this. Elon sold shares November 4th, November 7th. Filings just came out.
Well, at least we know what happened.
Yep. So I mean, I was looking at it. I didn't want to think it, and I've been checking every single day. And obviously, being on here, I didn't have a chance to jump in. But well, that answers that question.
That's 145 million or something.
Yeah, let me see if I'm trying to get in here. I can't get into on my iPad.
So that confirms my theory that he had still money lended to him and had to reimburse it, right?
Yep. So there we go. And today. So I mean, looking at the way the stock was falling, it makes sense, especially with it underperforming the entire market. So now, obviously, as we were talking before, the question comes up is, well, does he have more to sell? Is he selling more?
Is he done?
Why is he selling? Is it because of, like Alexandra said, is it the bridge loan that maybe he had gotten? Or is it because he's got to float some money to cover Twitter because all the advertisers pulled out?
That's probably what it is.
And so now we've got a lot of questions. And of course, as we know, the market doesn't like questions if you don't have answers. So.
And why is he doing it in the open market again? Remember last year in December when he had to sell for his taxes? I mean, that was so clumsy. And fair enough, it's the first time it was clumsy, but here we go again.
But I wonder if he does it. I wonder if he does it intentionally like that because he is a man of the people. Despite the fact that he's the wealthiest man in the world, he's still a man of the people. So he trades just like we do, and I think that's part of the reason why.
I think he thinks that he's making,
just like he does.
I think he thinks he's making a buying opportunity for the retail investors, but I think that he does not realize that there are people getting margin called, and like I said before, some people need their assets to be certain valuations for other things. So, I don't think he is. I don't even know how this is possible because I really think that he's the smartest man on earth, but I don't think he's thinking of everything.
Yeah, and some of it is.
You're right.
I don't know. And I've said it many a time before, like back when he sold the first time last year, he came out, made that Twitter poll. And it's like, I think if Elon could, based upon what the SEC says, if he was allowed, he would just come out and say, hey, by the way, everybody, I'm selling shares the next couple of days, just so you know. He would do that. But obviously he's not allowed because the SEC won't allow that.
Well, we would all sell, though. That's what would happen is everybody would sell and then buy back in a couple days.
Exactly.
So then the stock would it would plummet.
Oh, 20 million shares. 20 million shares.
There's 19.5 million shares. So it looks like Leo literally bought everything that Elon sold. I don't know.
The only thing I really don't like is that Elon did tweet that he did not have to sell any more shares. Like, just don't tweet that then.
Yeah, and I know that he did. He said it back in August. He's like, I'm selling now just in case. So. Yeah, I don't know. And how do you guys feel? Obviously, now we can go right back to the Elon PR team that we could possibly need. But it's like, makes me wonder, how do you guys feel about that? How do you guys feel about what he says, what he doesn't say? Should he tweet? Should he just keep his mouth shut? What do you guys feel?
I feel like he's the smartest man on earth and he should do what he wants.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not smarter than him. He executes at an amazing level, and that takes a certain brain, and you have to take all of it together. You cannot just take the genius. You can't.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I think the thing is, he bought this thing for free speech. He didn't buy this thing to be muzzled himself and not talk about it anymore. I mean, that would have been the stupidest purchase ever if now you're the owner and you're not allowed to say it anymore. But the other thing also is that, I'm fundamentally for free speech. That doesn't mean I don't block people. People that are very aggressive on the other side, I engage in any debate with anybody intelligent. That's no problem. But if they get rude or if they get then I block. And I'm really easy to block. I also block people that, get into my DMs with whatever crazy stuff. Just gone. Bye. But if we want free speech, be it on the right or be it on the left, the last thing we want is that Elon can't have free speech, right? I mean, if he's not allowed to say anymore what he wants to say, Let it be. And he may say sometimes stupid stuff. He says it. He's shooting himself in the foot. That's it. I actually like it that somebody so rich and so intelligent makes mistakes as well, right? I mean, you don't hear Jeff Bezos making a lot of mistakes or Bill Gates because they're hiding. I mean, when did you last interact with these people? Never. So I like that we have one of the richest people in the world that we can just, hear what he has to say, interact with him, write him open letters. I mean, sometimes I'm thinking I'm crazy, right? The 5 minutes before I published yesterday, I was like, I mean, who do you think you are, Alexandra? Why in the world do you think you can write an open letter to Elon? And then I just did it, right? That's just it.
Yeah, and you're so right, because think about the fact that you can write that letter and there's actually a legitimate chance that Elon's going to respond to that. But then here you go with Warren Buffett and you know full well he's most likely not going to respond.
Exactly. That's exactly the thing. Yeah.
Well, and we should all be adult enough to realize that Elon's also an adult and he is going to have opinions and we're going to have opinions, and we should be able to use our own brains and formulate our own opinions and not just like freak out when Elon tweets something. Like if Elon tweets like, oh, hey, you should vote Republican, like, oh, okay, that's his opinion. And then I'm going to go about my day. Not I'm going to freak out and like have a meltdown, like be grown, please, like act like a grown up. Yeah. But unfortunately, the majority of the world does not do that.
I know it drives me nuts. Like
I agree with you.
The amount of discussions I've been having with people about Elon's telling everybody they need to vote Republican. He's Republican. He's right wing. And I go, did you actually read his tweet where he says he's independent? Exactly. He's always voted Democrat. And just because there's an unbalance of power right now, he wants people to vote Republican because we need that balance back. That's it. And he said he's still open to voting Democrat in the future.
And let's face it, an unbalance of power that was highly critical of him. That was really unfairly treating Tesla for 2 years, right? I mean, fair enough, the Inflation Reduction Act helps all the other car makers and also Tesla, and Tesla will be much smarter than the other ones to really scale it. But it wasn't tailored to Tesla. Don't think about it. But other than that, it's been a rough 2 years for Tesla politically. So I mean, why would he now suddenly be favorable to them when they were not? And you're completely right. He didn't say I'm Republican. He just said, this is it. I really hope we're getting a Congress that is Republican so that there's balance of power and we don't get any crazy decisions anymore. Fine. Yeah. Good.
And as Curtis Biggs says, if you want genius, you can't have normal. And I mean, we go back to the spring, and Elon even told us in the spring that he's like, by the way, all of this negativity that's coming out towards me right now is going to get worse over the next 6 months. And it sure did.
And it did. And the only thing I wish he would have done is shielded Tesla a little bit better by putting another key person there, be it a spokesperson or be it somebody in the board or in the management, just somebody that calmed the whole thing down and had attention. Other than that, I really can't criticize him. I think he's a very brave guy. I really believe that, doing what he does for Twitter is probably going to make a lot of sense commercially for Tesla and Twitter. But I think fundamentally, he just wanted to make sure we still have free speech here, because it was just getting too biased and too monotone. And he wanted to make sure that there is a platform where everybody can speak. I mean, that favors immediately more the right wing, probably does, yes, and the left wing is more upset, but that's just it. Let's get over with it.
Well, there's a lawsuit right now going on where Alex Bernstein, I think Bernstead, is suing the White House and President Biden because when he sued Twitter, so this man sued Twitter for being deplatformed, and he won. He's the only person to ever win suing a platform. But during that lawsuit, he was granted discovery. And during discovery, he found out that the White House and the Biden administration had asked for him to be deplatformed, and that they had been that they were involved in that with Twitter. And so I think that played into it a little bit, and with the whistleblower as well, So I think Elon found out that the government really is having people deplatformed. Like, how many people are being deplatformed by the government? Yeah. What's going on? And Elon is highly moral. He has, if you think about what this man has given up, he has given up stuff like probably none of us would, because he could just cash out. He could have taken that $44 billion, bought an island, and been done with everybody. Just like Bezos and everybody else, I mean, and I can't blame Bezos. I would have a big yacht too. Good for you. But but he's not doing that. He like still works 120 hours a week and gets like dragged through the mud by the media and everything. And it goes through all this BS for us. Like he's sacrificing all this for us. So when I see people start trashing him on, social media, I'm like, pump your brakes. Cause I'm like, what are you doing for me? Cause I know what he's doing.
Completely agree. Yeah, exactly. Completely agree. Completely agree. And I may not understand everything, but I mean, the support he has to the point, to get back to the beginning, to the point that I really don't want to have for 30 days my Tesla shares out of my portfolio just for tax reasons. I'd rather have them in there because you never know what good idea he may come up with. That's
why I sold everything else, and I'm 99% in Tesla. The only reason I have like a little something else is my mom had a little account still for me, and I've transferred it to the account that has the Tesla shares. And it's just sitting there because, everything's kind of been down because the market's a hot mess. So I'm like, well, I don't really want to sell that now and turn it into Tesla, but I might because Tesla's really down. It's like a few shares of Apple, few shares of Microsoft. But then I'm like, well, they're kind of good companies. I don't know. I just feel like don't do anything. Yeah. Like I'm like, don't be emotional. Don't do it. Just sit on your hands.
Yes. And the way I look at it now is the last time Elon sold, all the Form 4s came out at the exact same time. So I'm wondering if he's actually done. Obviously, it would be nice to have confirmation. I haven't gone onto Twitter to see if he is confirmed, because usually when people ask, he will respond, which is awesome. He's like, are you done selling? Yes. And he'll probably give us the reason why, hopefully. So if he's done, I can definitely see a nice rebound. And somebody who follows the actual stock charts themselves, despite the fact that Stephen Mark Ryan thinks it's astrology for the stock market, seeing as the RSI right now is under 30, that usually means that we're going to get some buying pressure coming back in. So there's a good chance if Elon is done selling, we're going to get a nice rebound coming tomorrow.
And I mean, 4 billion. So the whole thing was 44. We knew he had 31.5 already. So the whole question was on 13.5, and I mean, there are other investors in it. I'm actually going to have on Fazad's channel tomorrow, Ross Gerber. I don't know how much he put in, but I know they had quite a lot of investors putting in money at the last moment. So are the 4 billion enough? Is that including the cash reserves he may need for the first couple of months? 4 billion is a chunk of money, right? So that could be it.
Yeah, and just a reminder to everyone who's out there saying Elon is selling for his own personal gain. Think about the fact that he's selling when all of us are saying you shouldn't be selling because that's paper handing. He's selling at the bottom. It's not like he sold at the top to make a ton of profits. He's actually...
And it must be so horrible because when he did in April, I was thinking about that today, when he did in April that offer at 54.20, right? It was already too high then. I think Twitter was trading around 42 or 44, something like that. So he put down 54.20, no due diligence. I mean, who does that? Since then, the stock market halved, and he still did it at 54.20, right?
Yeah.
So
I think because he felt like he had to. I think he had to make the deal like so good that if the board said no, it would it would be against their fiduciary duty. And so it would put them in this conundrum, which he did. Like the man plays 4D chess, even though he doesn't like chess. But, so I think he already knew.
It's too easy.
But anyway.
It's too easy. It's just too easy for him.
Yeah, right. And so, I don't know. But I think it's like he needs money maybe because all the advertisers backed out. But on the All In podcast this week, the guys were talking about it because David Sachs and Jason Calacanis are on the All In podcast. And I swear they said that like Elon put 25% up for Twitter and that there were other investors and that there were like a ton of investors lined up to invest with Elon, which makes a ton of sense, because I mean, if I could have invested with Elon on anything, if he was like, I'm going to invest in this bag of dog poop, but it's with Elon, I'd be like, who do I write the check to?
Well, that's golden poo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually something that I was talking about. And I don't know if Rob Maurer is working on it, but I would love for there to be some sort of Elon ETF where even us as, small investors can get into some of his privately traded companies.
I think he
can't because of the SEC laws.
Yeah, I know. But it would be great if that would.
You have to be an accredited investor. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you could do
like
a Reg
I
A.
can, and a lot of other Tesla investors could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no, they could do a reggae. A reggae is specific to that. Oh, now it's my mic. You see, nobody wants me to talk about the reggae. Uh-oh.
It's the full moon.
Can you believe that?
Oh yeah, it's got to be. You know, and it's funny.
Yeah.
I know Stephen Mark Ryan had a video yesterday talking about how Elon as a person is, like so many people are against him, and they're like bashing him right now, but think about all the people in the past who they're coming up and doing disruptive things in the world, and everybody's so against them, and everybody's like, oh, you're so stupid, why are you following this? And then you play that long game, and long term everybody's like, oh, that's what you were doing, you were so right. That I think is what is playing out right now with Twitter, and everybody's looking at Elon right now like he's an idiot doing the wrong thing, but they're not looking at the long game the way Elon does. So obviously it needs to all play out. But I have a feeling that's what we're going to be looking at in 3 to 5 years and looking back going, oh, that's what he was doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
When your optimist comes and knocks
show us those vote results.
Let me see here. Yeah.
Show us these results, Steve Farmer.
Oh, yeah. I haven't. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Current vote results. Senate 32 blue. 36 red, House 14 blue, 26 red. All right, let's see how this goes.
That doesn't tell me anything. Yeah.
No, I know. And then there's still obviously plenty of time, and it's only 8:41 here on the East Coast, so there's a ton of time to get votes in. So we'll have to wait till the morning to see how this actually plays out.
From what you saw, because I'm obviously going on the same time on Twitter, so from what you think you saw is that he sold on the 4th, Friday, on the Monday 7th, on today, Tuesday, filed tonight, the SEC for all three, which you're right, that probably signals he's done, because why would he file the 8th tonight?
Right. And in the past when he's done it, in the past when he did it, it was all filed on the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
and then
it was weird because on Friday I was like, initially I was like, man, it looks like he's selling. And I remember thinking about the fact that we were talking about the bridge loan previously. And I'm like, if he's got a bridge loan for a week, that would make a lot of sense for him to be selling within a week. So Friday would make sense. So I'm like, it kind of looks like it. I've checked Form 4s, nothing on Friday, nothing yesterday. So now here it is. So that makes a lot of sense. So he probably had that bridge loan to cover him until he got to this week.
Mm-hmm.
But again, hopefully on Twitter, maybe we'll get some clarification tomorrow or even maybe later tonight. I'm sure, Sawyer or somebody's going to ask him if he's done. So.
Well, and you never know if Twitter ends up making a lot of money, because think about how many people are going to have to pay for blue checks that they have blue checks now, but they're going to have to pay their $8, And so at some point, I think soon, Twitter is going to be profitable, and it really wasn't doing that great before. So eventually it's going to be making money. And sure, Elon's going to be investing a lot of that money back in, but it sounds like it's going to be printing money maybe in a couple of years. He's going to want to reinvest that. Maybe he'll buy his shares back. Who knows?
Yeah, and I know somebody had mentioned the other day that looking right now, Twitter's going to come out with more product in the next 3 months than they have in the last 3 years. I mean, that's not saying much because Twitter hasn't come out with anything in the last 3 years, but I think it's going to be huge. Like I said, with the $8 check mark, I think somebody had mentioned previously, I don't know if they were correct on this, but I think November 21st was going to be the day that it actually rolls out. So we'll see if that actually happens. I know.
If I understood this right, it would help me. Anybody can now get a blue or maybe other color check mark, but everybody has to pay. Even the journalists that already have them has to pay. So it's $8 a month. And the ones that have $8 a month are searchable or findable more quickly, like the first page of Google rather than the second page of Google where nobody ever goes, which is then reserved for those that don't pay, right? So those that don't pay still have all the functionality, can read, but when they post, they won't be as visible. Is that the plan?
Yeah, for the most part. So thinking about it, and this is an analogy I just came up with, it's like a needle in the haystack. You pay $8, that needle is going to be on top. Otherwise, you got to dig through the haystack to find your needle.
Okay. Like on Google page 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I think there's a few more features, but I can't remember what they are. I mean, there's optimization, there's the check. You can edit.
You can edit.
So you'll be able to edit your tweets.
Longer posts, longer videos.
Yeah, you can post longer videos. You'll be able to monetize. I don't think you'll be able to monetize without paying. So if somebody wants to be able to make money on their tweets, videos, get tipped, whatever, you're going to have to pay the $8.
Sure.
You know, if you just want to go
Are
on
you gonna
there and read
pay?
what people write, then yeah, you can. If you just want to be an observer, I think that they'll be fine with not paying. But I think even when you comment on stuff, your comment will end up all the way at the bottom. So if you ever like gone on a tweet thread, or even if you go into Elon's tweets and then you start reading the comments and you're like, that's funny, and you like a couple, and then you get bored with it, or you got to go do something else, and so you only get so many comments in.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's exactly
Sure.
it. And
I mean,
so,
I can't anymore. I can't respond to everybody anymore. I mean, not that I'm famous and I don't want to be called famous, but with 23,000, I can't answer everybody anymore. I try to set time apart for it, but even by trying, it's really too much.
I know, I feel the same thing. And one of the things that I loved about YouTube was I respond to literally everyone. And I had to start a membership program because with my full-time job, I just don't have time to get back to it. Like, I feel horrible at the end of the day when I don't get to respond to everyone, or if I don't respond to them like within the first couple of hours, I'm like, oh, I feel so terrible. But I'm like you said, like, there's just so many, you just can't do it.
Mm-hmm. So are you going to subscribe to the $8 per month?
I already did, yeah. Oh, I've got the Twitter Blue, which right now is $4.99.
Yeah, I already did too.
Well,
I signed up and then I tweeted Elon and I said, hey, kick this up to $8. I was like, take my money.
yeah. And I somebody said it's going to go up next week. Somebody said the 21st. I don't know. I just know it will go up, and that's fine. I'm good with it. And I quite honestly, thinking about, like, I'm still on Facebook, and I've got a few people on Facebook who already said, I'm now coming over to Twitter. People who have never been on Twitter before are going over there because of Elon. And we saw the MDAOs right now where there are more people coming to Twitter than leaving Twitter. Numbers speak.
I have to figure out how to get my group over to Twitter. So I am a mod in a very large landlord group. We have almost 23,000 people in our group, and it's really active. And I'm the most active moderator in it. And but I live on Twitter now. Like, I'm not with them very much on Facebook, and I kind of feel bad. I'm like, oh, did I abandon them? But I check on them, and they're doing fine, and they're getting good answers. If they need me, I'm here. But it would be a lot easier if everybody was under one roof. So I'll probably try to get all of my activities into Twitter. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, what we can facilitate. Videos would be good.
Are you the same person? Are you the same person on Facebook than on Twitter? Because let's just break it down. Yes. I feel that when I speak languages, I'm not the same person in French and in German and in English, right? I just feel there's something different by the way I am. And actually, my kids think so too. If I start talking German to my kids, they know it's trouble. If I speak French, all is good. But I'm a completely different person on LinkedIn, which is much more professional. On Facebook, where I animate quite a lot of groups for immigration, and I'm giving a lot of free consulting on Facebook, and that brings me a lot of afterwards clients. But I'm a completely different person than I am on. And they have no clue that Tesla Boomer Mama even exists, right? I have people that have absolutely. So if this would suddenly merge, or if this would suddenly be known, they would all think I'm crazy, right?
Oh yeah, my guys at work have watched my videos and like, why aren't you like that at work? I'm like, it's a totally different atmosphere. Like, I can't be this way at work.
Oh no, I'm like this everywhere.
Do you have your kids on? Do you have your kids on Twitter? Because I have my kids on Twitter, and then from time to time, not a lot, but from time to time, I get a tweet from my daughter or from my son saying, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Okay, what am I doing?"
No, my son's not, but obviously, as you saw, he was on YouTube here, so not very often he interacts, but it's awesome. And here we go, Daniel. Actually, I only wish Tesla could buy the stock back soon to slow the murder. But honestly,
yeah, me too. But you know what? But you know what? That they couldn't do that. They couldn't do that until Elon sold his shares.
Right. So now I'm wondering. And now I remember Gary had gone in and he had his team find out the legalities behind that. If Elon sold and then Tesla decided to buy back in afterwards, as long as they disclosed it all, that's totally fine. So I'm wondering if that's part of this.
That's not how they did. So Gary's proposal was that they would trade directly with each other, right? That Elon shares would be bought by Tesla, giving Elon the money and Tesla the shares at a predetermined price that was disclosed. But that's not what happened. He obviously sold it on the market the last 4 days. If he's done, that would open the window for now the board to meet. They couldn't have met before. The board to meet, then announce it. So maybe that's that. Maybe the whole thing was always, until Elon is done and has enough cash, we don't touch the subject.
Yeah,
Maybe that's that. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Like if Elon knew he was going to sell, why would Tesla buy stock when he knew that he was going to be selling 20 million shares?
Mm-hmm. Right, because they would know that it's going down. That's a good point.
Yeah. So that makes
sense. And there is obviously the whole the thing is actually very tricky to manage. I realized that when we were talking about these 50 engineers coming in, so they all had to be detached from Tesla, off the payroll, put on a contract or contracted out by Tesla to Twitter with insurance and the whole, we're in California, gush. So the whole thing, so it had to be really very well documented for how long they want to be there, at what remuneration, who is covering them, Social Security and whatever. It is much more complicated. And obviously they're used to that because they're exchanging already SpaceX people with Tesla people from time to time and all that. So they were prepared for it.
It's all the time. It's all the time. Yeah. If you hear how they function, like they can just kind of move freely between the companies. And if you have a good idea that's going to help one of the other companies, like you can do it. So, I mean, that's fantastic because they've already done it. So they're well versed in it. So it should go smoothly.
Yeah, that was actually.
Yeah, and then HR obviously has to follow. Yeah.
That was actually something that one of the engineers had tweeted about, was all the hoopla and uproar about Tesla engineers going over to Twitter, and he's like, dude, this happens all the time between us and SpaceX. Yeah. It's seamless, and actually, if one person needs something, one company needs it, we go over there without hesitation to help them out,
which is fabulous, right? Who has that? Who has that? Nobody.
Like, the hardest part is the back end because of one company being privately owned and the other one being publicly owned. And, when you get into the green card stuff and a whole bunch of other things that Alexandra probably is very familiar with, what she does, that's really the hardest part behind all of this, is just that. Yeah. But otherwise, the actual work they're doing is seamless.
You remember a couple of weeks ago, suddenly they were tweeting that I think it was a 50 or 100 engineers were coming over from Shanghai to Fremont.
Yep.
I was like, oh my God, what visa are they on? Because that's obviously my job, right? And I was like, oh my God, how did they get the visas? And I just hope they did it right, because this is such a pain. And I mean, it's really difficult to get a lot of visas, and to make sure you get this right.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Jay Lizer. I appreciate that. Thank you. My birthday has been awesome, especially tonight. Thank you. Yeah, and that's actually something I thought about too. And your name came to mind immediately when they were coming over here. I was like, ooh, it's like, how is that working out? How do they do this? I was like, and who knows how long.
And I had my fingers ready. And I had my fingers ready for a tweet, and I said, you just shut up, girl. You just don't say a word.
Well, because I know, like,
don't make anybody aware.
With my son in soccer, very often younger, they had a lot of different coaches that came in from the UK, and they were on visas, and like in the middle of a season, their visa was up, so they had to leave and go back home. So I don't know timing wise what the visas are like, and obviously bringing in a large group.
U.S. immigration. I mean, I love this country and I'm so looking forward to be a citizen, but US immigration, I'm helping hundreds of people and thousands of people have now their green cards thanks to us. But I can tell you, it's the hardest thing ever. I mean, it's so not logical, has never been updated, 15 nitty gritty little visas. This one works here, this one doesn't work there. Oh, it is something.
We need you to just go in there and do a clean sweep. Just let's clean this up and make it right for everyone.
It'd be nice if we did like a merit-based system at least. If we did a point system, like a lot of countries have point systems, and that would make a lot of sense. I don't know why we're not doing that.
But when Trump proposed that, because I actually followed that because that's so that's calling home here. And that was a brilliant idea that they put it out there, and I was, starting to think how my people I'm trying to get here would be favored. It was incredible, but it was killed. That was it. Another thing that nobody, in America, there are so many laws that never go through. I mean, this is the slowest Congress I've ever witnessed anywhere. I've obviously lived in Germany. I've lived in the UK. I've lived in France. Not saying they're quick, but this here in America is really something. Nothing ever gets done. It's incredible. If they suddenly pass a law, it's like champagne, because it's the first law in four years that we passed. And the next 2 years, I don't know how it's going tonight, but next 2 years will be just nothing. Nothing will come out of this.
Yeah, I remember.
Which is probably good, but I mean.
Yeah, it'd probably be better than just having all one party because they're getting very extreme. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on, what will happen. It would be great if we had like a parliamentary system and a vote of no confidence. I think we would have already voted not confident at this point.
Yeah, I remember back in, I think it was 2008, and I think it was the Democrats had come out with some law or some bill that they wanted to pass, and the Republicans said, no, we're not going to do that. That's a terrible idea. 3 years later, the Republicans came out with the exact same thing, and the Democrats said, no, we're not going to do that. It's a terrible idea. I'm like, you're literally saying no just because the other person wants it. I was like, this is not doing what is the best for the American people.
Yeah.
But
nobody cares. That's exactly it.
Yes.
Exactly. That's exactly it. You know that Nick thought I would have my glass of red wine. I didn't drink any yet. So please, for my reputation of drinking red wine, no.
Oh, yes. And actually, Nick is on right now. Nick, if you're still here, what's going on, buddy? How's it going, Nick?
We did, Nick. It broke my heart.
We did talk about it. Yeah, we'll have you on the channel here soon, Nick, too. Let's see. No other questions here. It is 9 o'clock. It is about my bedtime because I get up at 3:30 in the morning.
Good.
But
thank you for having us for your birthday, Tim.
This has been the best birthday ever. Thank you, ladies, so much for being on here. I appreciate it. And thank you for everyone in the comments. This has been an amazing night. Thank you all so much. We will see you all later. If you guys do not follow these two ladies on Twitter, please do so. You guys can give yourselves a shout out right now if you want. Alexandra?
Here it says it. Tesla Boomer Mama. Do it.
And I'm at J_Grayshaver. I'm sure it can be put down in the notes or comments. So,
yes. Yes, you guys definitely follow them over on Twitter. And Jen will definitely have her studio updated soon enough, so we will get her on and we will have these ladies on more often.
Bar. This is just for happy hour live streams because we're drinking, so it makes sense.
Yes, and this is going to be a regular occurrence. I don't know if it's going to be weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, but anyway, we are going to do this regularly. So we will have ladies on here. So if anybody in the comments is a lady who wants to come on and chat with these wonderful ladies as well, please by all means reach out. We will have you on here gladly. Otherwise, thank you all so much. We will see you later.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Take care.